thank you everybody for joining, and welcome. Welcome to this 12-minute session. We do this every first Wednesday of the month, I have the pleasure of interviewing every time one of the founders that we are working with closely, that we have invested in, and getting a little bit the straight from the tap story of what it's actually like to not only build a company with Antler, but in general to build a very, very early stage company. And the format that we have is a very quick fire format where in this case Julia, who's joining us from a company called NOVO, will give a quick intro of herself and the business that they are building, and then I'll follow up with a quick fire round of questions where we'll go into a number of things that is interesting around the business and their building journey. And then we have at the end 3-4 minutes for Q&A. So for those of you who are in the audience, there is the Q&A functionality. Just feel free to already now, as we're going, start dropping questions in, and then we will, or Julia will, answer those questions. Use the opportunity to quiz her on what it's really like to have the misfortune of working with me and the rest of the Antler folks. But now, without further ado, the timer has started. Let's kick this off. Julia, tell us a little bit about NOVO and yourself. And
yes,
Mona.
happy to. Thanks for having me, and hello everyone. Together with my co-founder Mona, we founded NOVO last year in 2022. So our company is more than a year old now. I can't believe it, actually. We got to celebrate our birthday, like almost all the companies do, I think. But next year we need to actually do better on that one. So what is NOVO all about? What's our model? What we are seeing out there, and probably many of you have had touch points with this, is that our homes, our buildings need to become more energy efficient because of energy crises following one after the other. The climate crisis in general, and also because of regulation, because on EU level, for example, there has been a reaction to all of this. There's a lot of lawmaking happening on how buildings in general to become more energy efficient. So that means we must renovate. And the problem is building owners don't know how to renovate. They don't know what to do, and they don't know how to access the financial means to do that. So NOVO is an online platform that helps building owners in understanding how to renovate their houses and seamlessly connects them to financing partners and to the subsidies that they can get right now. And when you look at the market right now, or the standard process in the market right now, it's a super manual. You have this bearded guy coming to your home and trying to understand your building and then creating more or less by hand a plan for your renovation. And what we did was we automated significant parts of this already. We have been making revenue with this since January 2023. We are further and further automating this whole process because it can be automated, despite the fact that people who are currently in the market might claim it can't. We built a lean team around this and a network of external workforce as well. And in the meantime, also, we attracted powerful partners from the worlds of finance and energy providers. For example, Germany's largest real estate banks are working with us now. And we are hiring. We're hiring smart people, mostly from the spaces of software development and energy efficiency experts to accelerate our product development.
Cool. Thanks for that background. Let's jump straight into a few quick questions. So first of all, tell us a little bit about kind of how did you and Mona, your co-founder, become a team? You're, in Antler terms, a bit of an atypical story. It's been, the company is now a year old. It's been a year and a half since I first talked to you and got to know you. And a lot has happened. Tell us a little bit of kind of how you became a team, why you became a team, and a little bit of background.
Yeah, so actually different from many Antler teams, Mona and I had known each other for more than 4 years already before we joined Antler. So we had quite some experience in working together. And for us, it was also it was a desire to get out of the Antler program as a team still, but it was also an option to find out that other constellations are better for us. So it was kind of a test also for our constellation. We kept our team or our constellation open until the very last point in time, until we had to make a decision, and then realized, no, it's still the best that we can imagine, which is great. We met at another startup, had been advising other companies together. So we knew a lot about each other, which other Antler teams don't when they form. So we saw other teams had to kind of do what we had done over years in an accelerated process. And what we saw was those teams that made use of the time that they had to ask each other very personal questions. I think they are the ones that are still together. The ones that found out about the very personal drivers and motivators only further down the line struggled at some point or the other. That's something that I think we definitely had as an advantage for us. We knew each other quite well.
And that's the team element. Let's talk a little bit about kind of NOVO, the idea, because I do remember a lot of discussions on a lot of different topics with the two of you. How did that come about? How did that materialize?
Yeah. So looking back, it all makes sense. I think that's the case for many founders. Being in the process, and I remember we discussed so many different topics and industries, it felt very chaotic and very blurry. What is the stuff that we are going to build? Now looking back, it's kind of logical that we ended up in the build world, because we had been looking at those first row problems in the question of how do we as humans live in the future? How do we live in our urban areas? How do we what is our environment in the future? And we had been looking into mobility topics for a long time before joining Antler. Had advised a couple of tech companies in that space as well, and we thought, okay, that's kind of the closest thing to us. Realizing at some point, no, this is the closest thing, because that's what people see, and that's what is a type of problem that is very close to what we consume every day. And then we realized there's a second row of topics that are untackled. And this second row, one of the big challenges there is in the built world. It's about buildings. We don't think about them too much because we just live in them and they are there. And now there's a time to think about them and to realize that nothing has happened in that space. There's a lot of traditional processes in there, and we need to disrupt this industry next thing, because otherwise we won't be able to tackle our challenges in the future. And that was what sparked our interest. And we realized, okay, this is really untapped. This is new territory, and there's a lot of traditional players in there, which we thought is fun, because disrupting traditional players is fun. And we had been in touch with corporate worlds and political worlds in the past. So this very much fitted our background, which we realized in hindsight only.
Reverse rationalization is also a thing.
Exactly.
And I mean, you've been on quite the journey the last, I don't know, 16 months. We started working I think 13 months or so. You actually became a company working on this very thing. You just mentioned that January you kind of started making first revenues. What's kind of the proudest moment in that journey of building NOVO to date?
I think one of the proudest and also most enlightening moments for us was when we realized that we are able to win really big partners with what we've built so far. So we realized we are basically the sales machine that we wanted to build. And we have something
that you are.
Then we can build something and we are building something that is really, really needed when those players decided to go on pilot mode with us. We are now working with them and going very deep into their processes, are embedding ourselves super deeply into their worlds. And this has happened so fast that at some point we realized, whoa, we've been kind of overtaking ourselves in terms of speed. And that's really great. We are much faster in this than we expected. And that really makes me proud, makes us proud. We are talking about this quite a lot because we are talking about those partners every day. So there's a proud moment in every day, basically.
And kind of on what what are the moments along that journey that you think kind of Antler's been most helpful with?
Mm. Actually, this turned out to be the long-term relationship. I could have mentioned, I think a couple of months back, I could have mentioned a lot of moments during our active cohort period and right after, where we were benefiting a lot from a lot of structure and network. But the real value of the Antler network actually showed for us when we were going into the next fundraise and realized there were a lot of intros that were super helpful to other investors. And us being a very not so typical team, two females in the world of construction and urban tech, it really helped to be backed already by Antler and to have those warm intros coming to investors that might not have considered us otherwise.
Yeah. And then quick sidebar here. Again, to the audience, if any of you have questions for Julia, feel free to just shoot them out in the Q&A. We'll get to that in a second. Last very quick question to you, Julia, from me, and then let's go into the audience questions. Bunch of people here looking to join Antler. Some of the people, the names in here I recognize will be joining Antler very shortly. What advice would you give these people?
I think one out of my personal experience is keep yourself open. You might actually end up with an idea that you think is impossible or you don't want to tackle right now. But you realize down the line when you have found the right co-founder that any topic can be close to you, closer than you think right now, because you might only realize in hindsight. As long as the founder constellation is right, any topic can be successful. And regarding the founder constellation, what I said earlier, I think it is something that I can't stress too much. Ask very personal questions upfront and try to find the honest answers also in yourself. Questions about how much money do I need? Questions about what happens if my co-founder actually starts a family? How tolerant am I regarding the changes that come with this? So there's a lot of very personal stuff that you might not want to share with the stranger that you meet there right away, but it's worth it. It definitely pays off in the long run.
Absolutely. Now let's go into audience questions. First question. So is around type of people that you may find in an Antler cohort. So now you and Mona kind of have startup operating backgrounds. You were you met at a company where you were C-level when and raised significant money and had kind of that startup operating experience. What other kind of types of people did you see in that cohort?
What I found interesting was that many of us had some startup experience previously, either from building their own, some even from exiting their own startup, others from being part of a startup journey in a more or less significant role. Others, that was a minority, but pretty interesting too, came from consulting, which I found also pretty helpful because the strategic school or strategic training they've been through was pretty helpful, I think, for many teams. Then we had also a portion of very techy people who were more like, let's say, islands for tech. Many people were swirling around them, trying to win them on their team because everybody wants to build something technical at some point. They were, I think, more or less coming from all kinds of backgrounds. That was pretty interesting because also that came with different types of formation issues in teams, because you have to get to know each other in a totally different way when you come from very different backgrounds. Yeah. Oh, and then the corporate plans. Me being one of those corporate plans in a way as well, having a corporate background in the beginning of my career, but others as well were from innovation departments of corporates, which was also pretty interesting, especially for the B2B ideas coming up later.
Got it. Thank you. And then you started in probably not the easiest time in startup land. What's your thinking on starting a company in the current environment, and news that you can't share yet, but you seem to be succeeding, let's put it that way.
Yeah, definitely right now is not the easiest time to raise funds. Definitely it's a lot more checking and looking very closely from the investor side, which also kind of reduces the noise, I think. So a lot of questions or ideas that might swirl around you in a world where everything is possible and everybody gets funded just are not there right now. So people really look at, can this become profitable in a decent period of time, and what's the path? And they are asking this also at a pre-seed stage already, which normally would have happened much later down the line, which I think is a healthy development. However, the problem is old mechanisms are switched on again. So openness to, for example, less conventional teams is declining again. Being in this phase and raising funds in this phase is definitely extra challenging for diverse teams.
Got it. And then, since we're up on time, any last advice that you would give to people starting out now? Things that you wish somebody had told you.
It can't get faster. When we were talking about joining Antler, Mona and I were wondering, okay, what is the fastest track to really get going and to get some traction with something and really test our ideas and find some common ground on what we want to build. And I realized had we continued to do that on our own, we would have at some point ended up founding a company and building something. But I feel that we were much accelerated by deciding that we should join Antler. And I must admit, we did have some doubts whether this was actually the right thing at our stage and with our experience. In hindsight, I'm really glad we did it, because it actually fit our stage very well, and especially this phase of what is it now that we want to build. So if you're wary about what ideas you want to actually put into action, bring them and see whoever jumps on that bandwagon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time, Julia. Pleasure as always, and we'll catch up in more detail separately. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you for everybody who joined in. If you have any further questions, please do reach out, and hope this was helpful. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Alan.
Bye.
Bye.